BBC Radio Berkshire, 8 minutes after 2. Mike Churcher, co-founder of the website and research project in Wokingham, Remembers, and myself are just about to go off at many, many tangents because, as we were just saying, you can't help it. When you're researching and doing history, something catches your eye, and about an hour later you go, hang on, I was way over there just now, and I've gone right off. So, Mike, the great thing is, though, you're still married, divorce proceedings haven't taken place, so everything must be okay.
No, and I've been told that I've got to stick to a straight and narrow, so I've got my notes here. I've got to go through it, and I'm not going to budge from them.
No, let's wander, let's meander a little bit. So, I mean, what was the idea? I mean, we know it's a commemoration at the moment of Wokingham Remembers, that there must already be a certain amount of stuff in place about the World War One.
Well, if I sort of start from the beginning, it was in 2010. I was in the town hall and got into the centre of, this is in the centre of Wokingham, and I just happened to look up at the War Memorial, 200 names there. And I asked the question, who were they? So I spoke to the clerk. Does anyone know anything about them? No one knew anything. 217 names, and that was it. And the thing was, there were just the names, no other reference. So there was a Richard Smith there. So, I mean, even my grandfather's called Richard Smith. So you just start with someone from Richard Smith in Wokingham, and that's it. So you're then having to try and you find that you're looking at trees of 5 or 6 Richard Smiths before you get to one that you think might be about right.
The delight is when you get someone with a very unusual double-barreled name because you think I can lock down on them more easily.
I have got here Frederick Bruce de Vere Alfrey now. You couldn't get that one. There's only ever going to be one of those. Yeah. So we could actually have a little chat with him, and I'm pretty certain that we've got the right person there.
Yeah, so, it is intriguing because what you will find on there, of course, are little clusters and groups of names that are specifically local names, local families.
That's right, absolutely. There are so many names that you have, and the people are still living there today. So sometimes you have to be sort of pretty careful about what it is that you're saying because there are still sensibilities there. Yeah. For instance, one of the things that a name that pops to mind immediately, the Brants, 6 names up there, 6 Brants. And then you still find people coming to you and going, oh, I'm part of the Brant family. Brants were huge, massive.
What are you actually trying to do with this? What was the ultimate goal when you started?
I think it's just being inquisitive. What was it about? But you start to find out about the war itself. I've been interested in history for a long time, and I found that the First World War itself was something of a watershed period, sort of like 1066 when something big happened. Mm-hmm. So the old order just disappeared, and the new order started again in the 1920s, and so therefore you start off as a homage to these people, and then you just, exactly as you said earlier, you just get immersed into the whole of the history. So now it's family history we're into, it's military history, it's all about local history as well. So it just gets bigger and bigger, and then it's not just Wokingham, it's then Berkshire. I was just saying off air about the nabobs. I'm now starting to read about the nabobs of Berkshire, Clive Williams' book. So you just get interested in one subject after another.
It's where these people have come from as well. That you often find that if they're in the military, maybe they've got military history and their family being the Boer War, the Crimean War, Trafalgar, and you see that, oh, hang on, and you think, how much do I need to put down? It is always that excess that interests you, and you're thinking, am I going off course? Is it too much for the reader here? Are you going to do a book, or is it a website? Oh,
it's a website. So I think when you say what is it that your real objective is, I think we would like to do is really try and say that actually this is an inspiring story, and this is what I want to try and talk about this afternoon, is that we had Heritage Day a few weeks ago, and we had 600 people come up, and it was all about the centenary. So this is all about people dying in a very, very bad way, and you're thinking, oh God, this is all going to be a bit of a sad affair and everything, but it wasn't. The people who were coming in were energised. And I think what it was is that it was a very lively day because people were talking with a great deal of pride. Yeah. And so that pride makes people sort of talk and chat about their ancestry. So I'm hoping that we'll talk a few stories about some of the people. But what I'm also wanting to do is bring it up to date so we can tell the story of what happened with the men in those days. But now there's a story that actually happened in the last few years since we started up the Wokingham Remembers website.
I think, people can be maybe even family members a little more objective about it now. I think if you talk to people in the 20s or 30s, there's still, it was my father, there's still that sort of maudlin, oh my God, it was terrible, it was disgusting. Yeah. I mean, now they can be not dispassionate, but enough to look back with pride at something that was 100 years ago.
That's right. It's a little bit further away than it was, but still very connected. It's a different type of remembrance, I think, that we're going to be moving into now. But yeah, still, people are still very, very connected, and that's what we found on Heritage Day.
You must have turned up some fascinating stories. I mean, you must have. I mean, you bringing together people from Australia as well, digging out people. So it was a lot of work.
We laid the initial information down probably in 2011, but what's happened, because the website that we built allows you to put comments into it, people from, as you say, all around the world have started to write in, and they come at it from all sorts of different angles. You think that you're dealing with one person, but as we'll find out, you'll find someone's making an inquiry about the brother, and the brother was the one who survived, so it's their great-grandparents. The problem that we have with the people who died is that they weren't really grandparents or great-grandparents because they didn't have any children themselves. They were too young. Yeah. So it's always someone's great-uncle. And they're the great niece of or the great nephew
of. And, of course, the lost generation. And you were saying about the amazing sea change, which there was between the start and the end of the First World War, a completely different country after that. But there were people who were at university, for example, in 1913, 1914, went to war, and they went back to university when they came back. So you've got guys well into their 20s at university with people just starting. So you had a great disparity in ages working together, which was unusual.
One of the things I was just going to do was just maybe take some examples of some of the people that you were just talking about, that some of the interesting stories. And if you'd like me to kick off with 1914. So we have as I said, Lieutenant Frederick Bruce de Vere Orfrey, who was killed at the age of 22. So you up for the story?
Yeah.
Okay. So Lieutenant Orfrey, he is born 1891. He's a Wokingham boy. He is educated at Wellington College, as was his father.
Military college, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah. And he, by 1914, he is a lieutenant in the 9th Lancers. We go to the Battle of the River Marne, 7th of September. They're literally on their horses, the 9th Lancers. They've got their lances. They see the Prussian dragoons over a field, and they charge. They just go and clash straight into each other. And Arthur Breyer, he's killed. Captain Guy Reynolds, he gets a lance in the shoulder. He's dismounted. Part again, Lieutenant Orfrey, he's going back to the village in Moncel. He gets off his horse, and he has heard that Captain Guy Reynolds is still on the battlefield and has got this lance in his shoulder. Frederick, he goes and re-enters the battlefield, goes to Guy Reynolds, goes to pull the lance out. He's shot dead. One of the German dragoons was on the field, and he's shot dead. So, did
you get a posthumous award for that?
Not that I know of, but there's a lot of people who did very amazing things who didn't. It just seems to be that there are lots of people that did these sorts of things, and they just didn't get awards. Well, I would probably give awards to all of them, frankly.
What is amazing, of course, is Earl Haig still didn't really believe in the machine gun. He still believed, because he was old school, in the cavalry charge. So there's that mixture of, new technology, tanks, machine guns, and cavalry. Mike Churchill, the co-founder of the website and research project Wokingham Remembers, which you were telling me this a gruesome tale, the cavalry charge.
Yes, so Lieutenant Orfrey has gone. Breyer, he's gone. There's another one of the shoesmiths. He was killed. One of the things that really upset me was then you look at the family history and you see that he is an only son. Ashridge Wood House, those people in Wokingham who know the area, it's just north of Embrook, just outside Woolwich. It's a big estate. It's a massive estate. Now that's gone. He had a sister. She had a son, and he was killed in the Second World War. So Mrs. Orfrey had seen all of this happen with both the son and the
wars actually often meant that odd people like cousins and nephews inherited where they wouldn't have done otherwise.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
And
I
this
mean,
is,
that's
I don't know what
so
happened with this one. Yeah.
We were saying the other day that, talking about Duchess of Devonshire, that happened at Chatsworth. Had it not been for a bullet, everything would be different.
Yeah. You can't help but wonder, what if? You just can't.
So what else? Have you got another great tale for me?
What happened then is this. I then get a contact a couple of weeks ago from a lady who says she was wandering along the Western Front, gets in contact with me and says there was a great big commemoration that took place, and she arrived at the commemoration, and there's Prince Andrew. He's Commander-in-Chief of the 9th Lancers, the same Lancers that Alfrey had been killed in. 100 years later, there's 150 servicemen stood around in this area of Moncel, where they're tiny little graveyard, 3 little graves in the corner, and there's this huge troop of people remembering that moment. So I contacted by a lady who's on the Western Front. I'm then contacted by the great grandniece of Breyer, who I was saying, who was one who was actually killed in the charge. Then I get an email from the son of the man, Guy Reynolds, who had the injury in the shoulder.
Gosh.
I mean, he must be very old.
Yeah, good age.
Aidan Reynolds. And you're getting all of these emails, and you get all the emails together, and you make contact with everyone. And then I got contacted by Major Phil Watson, and he was the man who organised the whole commemoration. And he's given me loads of photographs, loads of letters, all on Wokingham Remembers.
Amazing. Yeah. So what other tales? I mean, that's great. I mean, I'm sitting here with my tea and my chocolate, just sort of having an afternoon story. I love it, Mike.
I've got more if you want to hear.
Yeah. Let's have another.
So that was 1914. The other thing I was going to say was, can you imagine all of that imagery that we have of the trenches? But this is the Lancers. It was the last lance-on-lance battle, the last charge. But in Lancers, it isn't something that you really think of as the First World War, medieval Lancers.
There are images, moving images of cavalry moving in the First World War. I was just saying with Haig. Haig was still old school. He still thought that's how you should fight. And everyone was saying, excuse me, sir, we have these tanks now that Swinton's invented. We've got machine guns. So it was a whole different ballgame. It was almost two different wars in a way. It was quite weird.
It was. Yeah. That actually happened. I think after 1916, that's certainly the modernity starts to take place. But the funny thing is, these machines, they had a tendency to break down. Alfrey was actually a machine gunner, and they were given 2 machine guns. There you go, 2 machine guns. Look after that, and apparently they jammed.
Oh yeah.
At the moment of the charge,
and the early tanks as well were not. Not completely bulletproof. Yeah.
No, they weren't. No, they kept on breaking.
I mean, the early ones got the tracks got stuck. So, yeah.
They were like an oven, weren't they? Sort of got cooked in the tin.
Goodness me.
So
what
that was 1914.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was the time when we were still in Lancers. You didn't have that the trenches, but Ypres then takes place. They're attacking Ypres. It's called the death of the professional army. That's what become known as the Old Contemptibles. So we move into 1915. 1915 is the time of Gallipoli, but still. Britain's still not getting its act together. It's still not being able to produce enough of the munitions. Britain is not really a big attendee at that time as much as the French. They were actually lobbing over jam tin bombs, filling it up with whatever was required and throwing it over. And that was the sort of, I think, the terror of that time. But what we have is, this is the story that you said about Australia. And I was saying to you that it's not necessarily the grandchildren or the great-grandchildren who are contacting you. It would be someone who was connected to the brother of, and that's normally the person who survives. So the brother survives, but they want to know a little bit about the great uncle. But really, they're talking about their grandfather. So what we have is Battle of Loos, about September time, and that was probably our first real big attack that we put together. Lost again a huge number of people, and with it we lost Sidney Hogburn. Lived in Plough Lane, just off the London Road in Wokingham. It's one of those stories where he disappears from history. He's a part of it, not really mentioned. He's just one of those lads that went over the top. There, the story would end until I then get a contact talking about his brother Fred. So Sidney's passed away, but Fred survives. Right. So I get a call from someone who says, I'm the only child of Fred Hogburn. I'm the only child of Fred Hogburn. Oh, okay, got an inquiry, so I helped with the inquiry. Then, I think it must have been only 2 or 3 weeks later, I get a call from someone else saying, hello, I'm the only child of Fred Hogburn. And I'm thinking, actually, if my sums are right here, there's no such thing as two only childs. So I thought, and this is where you start to become, you have to be very careful.
Yeah.
What you're worrying about is actually keep them apart, or do you make contact? So what happened was that they made contact, and I thought, well, I better actually get in contact with these two people. So I did. I said, look, you're both saying you're the only child. Could you please sort of speak to each other? Well, what it was, this chap who was the only child, a chap called Harry Hogburn, was 90 years old. And he had always wanted a sister. Well, at 90, he had one.
Wow.
His sister was actually also in Australia. So he gets on the plane, 90 years old.
Golly.
And he goes and meets his sister.
And was she
Absolutely.
Was she adopted?
Incredible.
What was
No. Brought up by the mother. Fred had left the family home, went and moved in with someone else. There was another child. Had another baby. So Harry, can you imagine a 90-year-old getting on a plane? They were really quite right. All the family all got together, all made this happen. I mean, it must have been obviously an incredibly emotional experience. Now, Harry passed away recently, but he had his sister.
Wow, I mean, you spent all your life wanting a sister, never had one, and found her right at the end.
He never expressed it. He was only very, very positive about the experience. But you think, did he ever wonder about, what might have been?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that is a moving story, isn't it? How many people find their sister at 90 years old? Amazing. So you can find all this out by popping onto the Wokingham Remembers website. They're fascinating because you get right in there, don't you? You're right involved in the story. And you're putting these tales up there, are you, on the website?
Well, if you go onto WokinghamRemembers.com now, I've got a front page that's on there which has got all of the photographs of all the people that we're talking about.
25 to 3 is the time. We've got a final story from Mike Churcher, the co-founder of the website research project Wokingham Remembers. Now, this is another tale from the First World War. It's difficult to imagine it's 100 years ago, but you're bringing these people very much to life. The story you just described, you're putting a family together that had no idea that it was all way in the past, and suddenly it takes a 7-league boot step into the future.
It's incredible, isn't it? Just that it's those sinews of time just trying to stretch back 100 years. So it's I just find it.
And of course, we have the
incredible.
research now that we wouldn't have had even 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. You'd have been sitting in libraries with great dusty tomes, driving yourself mad,
fighting the old ladies in their purple rinses and treading on you. And
if that's your thing, then Mike,
it wasn't. I didn't enjoy it. Well, what happened? Let's move on. So 1916, and this is the year of the Somme, the time when we lose 50,000 dead and injured in the first day, 1st of July, and it's a different time. Things are getting a little more modern, if you like. As you say, other things, the Lancers have gone. The guys have got off their horses. They're in the trenches now. So, but this one is particularly upsetting from my point of view, because this was a Mr. and Mrs. Potter, 7 boys. 6 of them were old enough to go to war. 3 of them were killed. 2 of them returned injured. 1 had his leg amputated. So this is a family sort of absolutely decimated. Now, one of those was a 16-year-old boy called Frank Potter, and he was a boy on HMS Hampshire, and he was drowned. He went down with Lord Kitchener. So Lord Kitchener, who is the people need you, that big face on the poster. He was going off to the Baltic to have negotiations with Russia, see how everything was going on. Hit a mine, it was sunk, and down goes Frank. And also, there's I think about 6 or 7 other lads from Berkshire as well on that same ship. So this is all taking place all up in the Orkneys. And Frank's passed on. Bring this, again, right up to date. I'm then contacted by a young lady who is, a great-grandniece. I was contacted by this lady, Anna Matthews, and sending photographs and things like that. I then find out she writes choral pieces, first-class degree in music. And I'm thinking, oh, what are you doing? So she said, I'm writing a little piece about Flanders Field, and it's about the peace that took place in 1914. Do you remember the outbreak 1914 of peace, where they were all playing football and things like that? Yeah. So she wrote this piece. I contacted St Paul's, which is where the Potters were. This is where they were great parishioners in St Paul's. For those of you who know, that's on the Reading Road, just inside Wokingham. And I said to her, well, how's your choir doing? Because they've got St Paul's got a superb choir. Could you speak to Anna and see if you could play it? November the 9th, this year, 9:30 on a Sunday, they're going to be playing her piece at St Paul's in the choir. I mean, can you imagine how Mr. and Mrs. Potter must feel if they were alive in their parish? That their great-grandniece is singing something on their behalf, having composed it.
Fantastic.
Inspiring.
Fantastic.
Punch the air.
Yeah, you want to take a step back in time.
Night.
Well, you always hope, as you say, you always hope they're looking down, don't you, and going, fantastic.
Yeah, they'd be very proud, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
So that's...
good stuff.
You've told me no more stories, so I'm going to hold back.
Good stuff. Always can come back and see us just before Remembrance Day. That would be good. Okay, early Nove, that will be. Yeah, fantastic.
Really? That's
in
fantastic.
the meantime,
thank you very much for having me. It's absolutely
pleasure.
Superb. Thank you.
We can now tell people that you've never done this before.
No, never. It showed, didn't it?
No, there are people sitting and go, I can't believe it.
No, they lied.
Surely
they
not.
lied.
Anyway, pop on to Wokingham Remembers website and you can check it out. And we'll speak again soon. Mike Churchill, thank you very much. Marvellous.